Hey everybody, it's Carpo again. I wanted to give kind of a shout out to Rupert Sheldrake, if people aren't aware of him. There's a lot of controversy surrounding the guy, but his work on morphogenic fields is amazing. And morphogenesis is basically, the creation of life through a field of energy. And I'm not going to try to explain his science behind his studies. You can look into it if you're interested. But Rupert has brought up some very good points in history. He's really into his field. I've always been interested in him and Graham Hancock and all of their work that they've done, and I don't take it all verbatim. And I just pick and choose, what is interesting. And the morphogenesis is based on the idea that human life and animal life, plant life, life in general, does not arise from genetic predisposition or genetic markers that create who we are. The genetics, when you're passed on to your children, are basic genes that are the building blocks for life, but they don't hold the keys to what a person is going to be or how a person is going to be. And I'm not going to even try to explain it the way he does because he's so eloquent in his presentation. But the idea is very sound, and it is a very legitimate idea of what the truth may be behind the existence or the word or creation and vibration. It has to do with quantum non-locality, to where when two connected objects are separated, then they're still separated no matter how much by space and time. They are still connected instantly. If one thing happens to one, it happens to the other. And this is how we have been explaining, psychokinesis, telepathy, all these different conditions. And he was explaining it like the way a flock of birds or a school of fish move. Scientists will say, well, a bird sees the next one next to him and they all kind of move in unison. Even the average Joe can look at a flock of birds, starlings moving across the sky, and say there's no way that each one of them can move according to, there's no leader. Sometimes the back of the group will start to move first. It's not like the birds are looking over their shoulders to see what the other guys are doing. It's a sense, a field. It's an energy field. And just like a school of fish will move as a whole, as a mass. And when you apply that to humans, you realize that this kind of explains the whole idea behind collective consciousness. And you can't really explain human consciousness through science. They try really hard by saying, hey, we've got these brains that hold all of our knowledge, all of our memories, all of our thoughts, everything we've ever done. Somehow we create these little phosphoric ends and these nodes, and we store these ideas in our brain. But it's just not a sound theory. It just doesn't hold water. Science hasn't proven where the actual information is stored in the brain. In fact, they've done experiments on rats where they've had them run a maze and they've removed parts of their brain. And they've tried removing each different part of the brain, and they still can run the maze. In fact, they've even blended up the brain, put it back in, and the rat could still run the maze. So the brain is a hub, or a processor. You might even say it's the computer between the internet and the user. And it allows you to have your personal aspects, but what you are is not created by your genetic makeup. Who you are is determined by the morphogenic fields. And if you were to, let's say, if the theory, holds any water at all, then the idea says that the code for human creation is everywhere. It's within the air. It's just like when you draw off of knowledge, then you're drawing off of the collective knowledge. And the studies they've done are quite convincing. They've done studies, when you think that a phone call is going to come, and you know who's calling, and all of a sudden they call. Or your dog, the dog that knows when the owner's coming home. They did a study where they set up a camera in the house with the dog, and then with the owner left, and they followed the owner around, and they didn't know when they were going home. And all of a sudden, when they told the owner, okay, it's time to go home, within 5 seconds, the dog got up from his sleep and walked to the window, and he sat there and waited. And they've done this over and over and over. billions to one, the chances of these being chance. And what this shows is even in the slightest scientific experiment, you can show that there's a connection, a telepathy between humans and between animals and plants. And the fact that people dismiss this as speculation means that they haven't done their homework. Because a lot of folks will say, hey, if this is true, then you need to provide scientific proof for it. So then a person goes about it with the scientific approach, just like the scientists want, and they present it and they say, well, it doesn't coincide with mine, so your study must be flawed. You know, the study could be absolutely perfect. It could be done with millions of people. But if it doesn't fit the paradigm, it's thrown out. And this is why science is garbage to me today, because science is separated from values. It's separated from integrity. Instead of science trying to supplement our existence and explain some of the deeper meanings, or I should say the more shallow meanings of the deeper meanings, or how things are put together, what it's doing is people are using it to try to explain away everything by saying that everything's material existence. And it's a lot easier for people to think that they have their answers in a science book, just like a Bible or anything else. But the truth is that everything is deeper than we know. And these experiments are going to continue to be carried out, and eventually folks are going to start to see that it's not just speculation anymore, that there really is a connection between you and I. That when you think about me, I'm thinking about you perhaps, or when we have a common ground on something, you know, we may come together because of that. Or somebody may come into your life at just the right time when you need them, or somebody might call when you really need to talk to them. I could go on and on about all the different weird things that happen, or all the tests that have been done on psychokinesis, remote viewing. You know, the fact that our own government used remote viewing, and probably still does to this day, and uses psychics, and then there's people out there disputing, the legitimacy of, you know, these people. It really makes me laugh, because if there's one thing I can say about our government, they may waste a lot of money, but they spend it on programs they know work, and they don't continue something if it doesn't work. Well, I should say if they have interest in it. They'll continue plenty of programs that fuck everybody else over. But all governments have been using remote viewers to try to look into other countries and what they're doing. And to them, it's just common knowledge. They know it. These people know. This is one of the situations where the people who say they are keeping knowledge from us, this is where they're right. Because, but the knowledge that's being kept from us is not something that we need to learn from someone else. The knowledge that's being kept from us is the knowledge that we inherently know within ourselves, that all we need to do is convince ourselves exists so we can access it. And that's where faith comes in. You know, I always thought faith was a fable. You know, I thought, how can a person really have faith in anything? You know, especially a God or, you know, creationism. But I understand faith from a different perspective now. I have faith in a good life. I have faith in myself. I have faith in truth. And I have faith in my heart to follow me and tell me what's right and what's wrong. And I can sense in people when they have evil intentions. You can sense through a paragraph when a person's picking at you or when they're not. And a lot of people say, well, it's all in the wording, but it's not necessarily in the wording. Let's say it's a person types a message to you, whether it's an email or a message on YouTube, and you read it, and you get a certain feeling from it, and you respond to that, and they say, well, that's not what I meant. Isn't it? Because often the meaning is conveyed with the words. It's almost like a psychic connection, you know, through the words. That's just my speculation. But, you know, these are just some of the angles to consider, because we've got too much going on, I mean, in this world. Too much external stimuli and not enough focus on the self. And this has always amazed me that, you know, that we spend trillions on space exploration, and the U.S. government is actually planning, Obama set this date to go harness an asteroid. They want to go out, rope an asteroid, and drag it back to the moon and put it in orbit so they can study it. And this is it. That's the pinnacle of human ignorance right there. We're not going to go out into space. We're going to bring space to us. I can't remember who said that. I think it was fucking Colbert, but it just cracked me up. You know, he did a whole skit about it. I won't take credit for that one because it was too funny. But the whole point of looking out into space instead of looking within, you know, looking without for answers. When we haven't even explored 5% of our own oceans. You know, and most people think the oceans are explored. Like, I've seen it on a map. We know where the ridges are. We know where the floor is. But we don't know what's down there. You can bounce a radar off the ground, but you don't know what's down there. And it's because it's not that we can't access it. It's just that we don't have the desire, because it's here. We want to see out there. But out there is in here, in the heart. And that's what I'm getting at, is that all these psychic connections and all these things that Rupert talks about, they're all inherent in mankind, but not just in mankind, but in animals. The animal intuition, that he says that, you know, humans tend to think that, well, we have this intuition that we use, and it's like exclusive to humans, or like we're psychics, but animals have that naturally, just like the way a dog senses the owner coming home. But the animals just use it to survive, and we have to acknowledge that it exists because we're conscious. So we're like, what do? You know, do we embrace it and try to develop our psychic abilities, or do we just leave it as something that nature uses when it needs it? Is it just kind of a backup? I mean, we don't know. You know, some people are more psychically inclined, and we've got people saying if you decalcify your pineal gland, then you'll be able to be more psychic, which is, all this is just, you know, speculation. Just so much of it. And a lot of it's true and a lot of it's not. You gotta sift through it. But I don't know if how much of it I believe, and my idea about psychics is that 90% of psychics are not fake, but they're like children trying to handle calculus. You know, they don't get what they're doing. Like Sylvia Browne, you know, people who just get grumpy when they're confronted. Oh, I've been doing this too long. It's like, no, if you're a true light worker, you will never get tired of it. If you're truly in it for the people, and you're truly out to help people, and you want to embrace society and get out there and expose yourself, you know, if you want a psychic that's grumpy, go hide in the closet. But if you're going to be nationwide and true, you know, you have to embrace it. And I see a lot of people don't have the desire to be good. They're just grumpy because they get sick of people's ignorance. And I can see that, but, you know, who are you to say someone else is ignorant, right? You know, we all do it. You know, people don't agree with us, or they have a different outlook on something, and we call them ignorant or stupid. And then later down the line, we develop that same view, and we realize, oh, that person was right. Everybody's done it. I mean, I don't know a person on earth, unless they're the most arrogant person, who hasn't said, God, I feel like an idiot for saying that. You know, that's just what we do. So, but I digress. Rupert Sheldrake, check him out. And Graham Hancock has some really interesting stuff too. Actually, they both had a TED Talk, Rupert Sheldrake and Graham Hancock, that were banned, you know, that were thrown out, and it was very controversial. So check them out. It's very interesting stuff. I think the Hancock one was on ayahuasca and how it changes people's perceptions on life and can help addictions, and the Sheldrake one was on morphogenic fields. And there's a lot of great authors and great people out there that I'm into. Some come and go, you know, some bring up really good points, and then they go into this crazy rant about stuff that's like, okay, whatever. So I think people want to have faith that somebody has the answers, and that they don't have to sift through each single person's ideas to say, okay, that fits, that fits, that fits. And people insult each other for saying, hey, you're just picking what you want from each religion. Do it. Make it work for you. I mean, that's what life's about. Pick what makes sense to you and what you feel in your heart. And I love you all. I really do. I think it's great. It's a great, beautiful day out here. There's a bunch of UFOs up in the sky, man. See them all? Big ass oak tree. Peace out. Wait.